Shalom. Before I get started, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahawah bahasham, Yahawahshi, bahasham, Rawchaa Qadash. It's the brother of Bakala while I'm here with another hopeful, edifying lesson to the elect body of Yahawah bahasham, Yahawahshi. This guy's a professor, a college professor. In the background, the Chinese or Asian looking fella. He look like he's from China, Moabite. He's going to tell you basically the condition of America, and it's in the condition of collapse, which basically I'm going to go ahead and get that precept, Jeremiah 51. It says, just the book of Jeremiah 51:7, it says, Babylon has been a golden cup in the Lord's hands, and the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of a wine, therefore the nations are mad, right? So basically he's going to tell you that, right? Babylon has been a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of our wine, therefore the nations are mad. That wine is democracy, their philosophy, their way of life, right? Which is basically democracy in a political standpoint, right? Verse 8, Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her, take balm for her pain, if so be she may be healed. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her, and let us go everyone into his own country. For her judgment reacheth unto heaven, and is lifted up even to the skies, right? So Babylon's in a fallen state, and basically he's gonna give you examples of this, and it's more or less a cycle that all empires is more or less, like he said, the cycle of life, more or less a cycle of life. Every empire must end, and that's true. Even according to the Bible, because the only kingdom that's promised, an everlasting kingdom, is the kingdom of Yasharallah, the kingdom of the Israelites, right? That's the only kingdom that is written to be a perpetual, everlasting kingdom. So here's this video.
American empire will collapse next 5 to 10 years because it is overstretched, too much debt, too much corruption.
So he says it's overstretched, right? Meaning what? Still in the book of Jeremiah. I think it's 46. He says overstretched, right? So it's more or less, it's past its bounds, right? And also America, Babylon the Great, Edom, Babylon the Great is also synonymous with Egypt. He says overstretched, right? This is Jeremiah 46. Jeremiah 46:17. It says, they did cry there, Pharaoh, king of Egypt. So like they did cry there, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, is but a noise. He hath passed the time appointed, right? Moreover, I could just start at verse 14, right? Jeremiah 46:14, it says, declare ye in Egypt, and publish in Middal, and publish in North, and in Tapanhis, say ye, stand fast, and prepare thee, for the sword shall devour round about thee. Why are thy valiant men swept away? They stood not, because the Lord Yahawah did drive them. He made many to fall, yea, one fell upon another. And they said, arise, and let us go again to our own people, and to the land of our nativity. from the oppressing sword. They did cry there. Pharaoh king of Egypt is but a noise. He had passed the time appointed, right? So these, basically the king of Egypt, the king of Babylon is just noise, man. He's past the time. He has passed the time appointed, right? Every empire has its cycle to end. And I think what America is already in the 250th year of its existence, and they said that's roughly around the time that a empire falls, right? Over in 200, roughly like 250 years or something like that. So he says it's been long stretched. It's been, you know, it's basically past the time appointed for its destruction.
American empire will collapse in the next 5 to 10 years because it is overstretched, too much debt, too much corruption.
Well, let's deal with that too. Too much debt, right? Too much debt, too much corruption is past the time appointed. And it's obvious, it's evident, right? This is the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3. It says, "For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry." Right? It says, "Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlarges his desires as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people." Right? America, Babylon the Great, is that great melting pot, right? Verse 6 says, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting prob against him, and say, Woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay, right? So that's America. They got all these different military bases all over the globe, right? He's in everybody's country and everybody's business. He's taking over lands. Just what happened to Venezuela, for example, just recently. Same thing that's going on with Iran. He's trying to take over their country for a new regime change. Yeah, talks of taking over Mexico, other Latin countries. I think Denmark. I think one of these European countries. He was talking of taking over it. So all these countries. They said, like it says in verse 6, shall not all these take up a parable against them, and a taunting proverb against them, and say, Woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, right? He's trying to take take things that doesn't belong to him. For example, like these other countries in their lands, their natural resources, basically their oil is one of the primary reasons, oil and natural resources like other natural resources like precious metals, gold, diamonds, silver. Things like that. Primarily oil, and to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. Going to that word thick clay. That word thick clay says heavy debts, right? So America is Babylon the Great, which is Egypt, which you're gonna prove that that great city, which is prove that America and Babylon and Egypt is the same. It's meaning the same thing. Revelations 11 and 8. It says, "And their dead bodies shall lie in the streets of that great city, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt, where our Lord was crucified." Right. So that great city, Babylon the Great, is also known as Egypt. Egypt just means uh, uh, like it says in Second Esdras. Like it says in Exodus, the second chapter. Uh, Exodus 20 and 2. I mean, the land of just get the house of bondage. Right. This is Exodus chapter 20 and verse 1. It says, "And the Most High spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord Yahawah thy power, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage." Right, slavery. Right, that's basically what Egypt means, slavery, the house of slavery for the children of Israel. So, just to prove that, that's what that meant. Right. So he says, so that's why I said when I read out of Jeremiah 47, Egypt. 46, they did cry there, Pharaoh king of Egypt. Jeremiah 46 and 17, it says, "They did cry there, Pharaoh king of Egypt is but a noise. He had passed the time appointed." Right. So this is the same thing. You know, he would say that it's long stretched, it's full of corruption, it's in heavy debt, it's in major debt. It's talking about Babylon the Great.
American empire will collapse in the next 5 to 10 years because it is overstretched, too much debt, too much corruption, too much inequality. It's in too much debt, and it is really angering the entire world. It's basically unifying the entire world against it right now. Say empire.
So it says it's basically unifying the whole world against it. We just read that out of Habakkuk chapter 2. It's unifying the whole world against it. We're going to go back to Habakkuk chapter 2. Read that again. Habakkuk chapter 2 and 5, it says, "Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlarges his desires as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Shall not all these take up a parable against them, a taunting proverb against them, and say, Woe unto him that increaseth that which is not his? How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay," right? Shall not all these take up a parable against them, right? All these different nations. Verse 7, "Shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booties for them, because thou hast spoiled many nations. All the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land, and of the city, and all that dwell therein." Right, because they spoiled many nations. He says, because of this, he says all these countries are against America.
Too much debt, too much corruption, too much inequality. It's in too much debt, and it is really angering the entire world. It's basically unifying the entire world against it right now.
Because America's debt, other countries is buying America's debt. China, Japan, and another European country. I can't remember what it is. It might be the United Kingdom. Um, you could look it up, but I know China and Japan is the two major buyers of debt of America, right? And that ties into all everything else that America does. All these different, because America basically is dictating how or controlling the global economy. Salakia. And whatever decisions it makes, it has a ripple effect or some type of effect, cause and effect in the global economics, right? And for the most part, America is controlling it, and they trying. That's why all these other nations are trying to make changes. Like that's why you got the BRICS nations. That's why other nations are doing other deals with other countries now, and more or less trying to fall away from the dollar. You know, that's what that's all about. That's what that's all about. And like he said, these nations are unifying together because of because of America because of America's dealings.
Too much inequality. It's in too much debt.
Too much corruption, right? That business, their business aspect is corrupt. Globally, it's corrupt. Too much inequality. So that's unifying these other nations against America because they see the corruption, the hypocrisy, right?
American empire will collapse next 5 to 10 years because it is overstretched, too much debt, too much corruption, too much inequality. It's in too much debt, and it is really angering the entire world. It's basically unifying the entire world against it right now.
So it's unifying the whole world against it. Now, to prove that, we're going to go to Isaiah, the book of Isaiah, chapter 14. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 14 and 4. It says that thou shalt take up the Isaiah 14 and 3, and it says, and it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord Yahawah shall give thee rest from thy sorrow and from fear and from hard bondage wherein thou hast made to serve, right? So like I was pointing out, Egypt just means the house of bondage, right? So America, who was the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, was caused to serve hard bondage in Egypt. Bondage means that Egypt just means the house of bondage. We was made to serve hard bondage in America, spiritually Egypt, right? So that's basically what it's talking about, right? Isaiah 14. I mean, that's the aspect of the hard bondage in Egypt. Isaiah 14 and 3, and it says, and it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord Yahweh shall give thee rest from thy sorrow and from thy fear and from the hard bondage wherein thou was made to serve, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how has the oppressor ceased, the golden city ceased, right? So we just read that out of Jeremiah 51. Babylon was a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunken, right? It's philosophy. That's why all the nations are mad. Like he was saying that all these nations are coming against America because it's corrupt, it's heavy debt, it's corrupt business practices, it's in major debt, you know, it's too much inequality. They want to control everything. There's not enough equality, too much inequality, more or less a hypocrisy in the name of this. But they say it's democracy, but it's basically hypocrisy, right? Uh, Isaiah 14:4 says that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how has the oppressor ceased, the golden city ceased. The Lord Yahawah has broken the staff of the wicked, and the sceptre of the rulers. Right. So who's the wicked? Esau, Edom, the Edomites. They are the wicked, and they ultimately rule the world from Babylon the Great, which is America. Right. Starting from the elites of Edom. Verse 6, it says, he who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger and persecuted Salakia. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted and none hindereth. Right. So it's talking about Esau, Edom. Right. He's smoking these nations with a continual stroke. He ruled the nations in anger. You see that, right? What's going on even to this day? That's what's going on. That's why he's taking over these lands, increases that which is not his. He spoiled many nations, right? Uh, he ruled the nations in anger. Verse 7 says the whole earth. Let me see. Right. The whole earth. Let me see. I can jump down. I'll just keep reading. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no feller is come up against us. Hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It had raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations, right? So that's basically what he was talking about, right? He says all these nations are against America, right? Hell is stirred up. The Lord is stirring up these nations to go to war with Babylon, right? He's causing these nations to gather together. He's stirring them up to come against Babylon. Labs next 5 to 10 years because it is overstretched, too much debt. American empire will collapse next 5 to 10 years because it is overstretched, too much debt, too much corruption, too much inequality. It's in too much debt, and it is really angering the entire world. It's basically unifying the entire world against it right now. Say empires last around 200 years, and so we are now in the twilight of the American empire. Said normally empire lasts 200 years. It's already 250 years of America's empire, right? So, like it says, he's past the time appointed. I think that's what they were saying. Empires collapse after 2,000 years. Does empires Yeah, it says the idea that empires collapse after exactly 250 years is a popularized historical theory rather than a fixed law, right? So, in theory, you know, due to his due to history, right? While many major empires have lasted roughly 10 generations, approximately 2,050 years, historical data shows significant expectation that both exceed and fall short of this time frame, right? But nonetheless, while major while many major empires have last roughly 10 generations, right? So it's through history. It says cycle of life. Look, let's see. I'm gonna go down here because he's gonna mention something like this. He says the fate of empires, the fate of empires theory. He says this concept originated from 1976 essay The Fate of Empires by British General Sir John Gloob. He analyzed approximately 3,000 years of history and identified a reoccurring life cycle for superpowers, right? So he's basically going to say that, you know, that it's a cycle, man. You can't do anything about it. And basically, it's faith, it's predestination, because it's everything is written. Everything, there's no such thing as uh, freedom of choice, so to speak. Everything is pre-written to go according to how it's going, right? It's predestined to happen, right?
And the other thing that we know is you can't actually stop the decline of empires. So Oswald Spengler, who is a German theoretician, he argues that we are human beings and we have natural life cycles because we're organisms. Well, societies are the same way, where empires, they will be born, they'll rise, they'll die. And it is a good thing because that's what allows for constant human innovation. Do you think that will happen in my lifetime? I'm 30 years old, 33 years old. It may happen in everyone's lifetime. It may happen in the next 5 or 10 years. We are seeing. Do you think that's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years? I think there's a very strong possibility. And if that is to be the case, what would you give me as advice as a 33-year-old? What actions should I be thinking about taking now, based on what you know about history, to make sure that, you know, it's not too bad for myself? I guess I'm asking this question in light of you predicting that there might be a collapse of the sort of Western or the American empire. And in such a scenario, I was wondering what it would look like to be an American. And is there a solution or a course of behavior one should take in such a scenario? But I guess that's the key question, which is, if the US empire does collapse, how does American life change or Western life change? Okay, so one theory that's very important to understand is something called Hermetic philosophy. And Hermetic philosophy is what underpins Plato's Allegor of the Cave. And Hermetic philosophy comes from Egypt.
So he said this philosophy, Hermetic philosophy, whatever he said. Hermetic, I think that's what he said. Hermetic philosophy comes from Egypt, which is another indication. Yeah, Hermetic philosophy. It comes from Egypt. This is another indication that what this place is. Let me see what Hermetic is. Hermetic. This is another indication this place is Egypt. Spiritually Egypt. Let's see, Hermetic philosophy. Hermetic philosophy is an ancient esoteric and spiritual tradition based on writings attributed from the mystical sage Hermes Trismegistus. That's a synthesis Hellenistic philosophy, Egyptian mysticism, right? So Hellenistic Greek philosophy. You know, when the Greek they took over he took over Egypt. I think it was the Ptolemy, one of the four emperors. I think was Ptolemy. I can't remember which one it was. When they took over Alexander's four generals. I think Ptolemy was one of them. He took over the section of Egypt, or one of the sections or areas that this general of the one of the four generals took over. I think I might be wrong about this guy's name. One of the four generals of Alexandria took over the Egypt. So basically, still on the concept, this place is Egypt. You know, America. One of the this is just an indication that this is also spiritually Egypt, America.
And Hermetic philosophy is what underpins Plato's Eye of the Cave. And Hermetic philosophy comes from Egypt. And it has certain principles, but its main principle is that reality is energy, it's vibrations. Okay, so we think of it as material, but material is a consequence of energy, right? So what this means is that reality is consciousness itself. So our thoughts are what's real. Our bodies are just vehicles to experience the world around us, but they're not real. When we die, our souls return to the source, and we come back again. And we are here permanently.
And that's basically reincarnation. It's that bodies are not really nothing, because the body returns to the dirt or the ground which it came, and the soul returneth to him that made it. Basically that's what he said. The scripture says that, basically he's talking about reincarnation. He says the body is not really conscious, or your ideas is real, more or less because whatever idea that you got comes from Yahawah, bahasham, Yahawahshi anyway. You don't have free will. The Lord puts ideas in your head to have you do whatever He wants you to do. Uh, might be dust. Yeah, Ecclesiastes 12:7, it says, "Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto the Most High who gave it." Right. So basically, that's what he's talking about, right? Your body shall return to the dust. Your body then shall the dust return to the earth. It's talking about your own body, right? And the spirit shall return unto the Most High, Yahawah, bahasham, Yahawahshi, who gave it, right? Return to Yahawah, right? So that's what he was saying. And basically that's reincarnation. Basically that's what he was explaining. It's reincarnation, right?
Is energy, it's vibrations. Okay, so we think of it as material, but material is a consequence of energy, right? So what this means is that reality is consciousness itself. So our thoughts are what's real. Our bodies are just vehicles to experience the world around us, but they're not real. When we die, our souls return to the source, and we come back again. And we are here permanently in order to experience things we cannot experience in the spiritual world, because the spiritual world is not material. So what's really important is to appreciate that every one of us is part of the source. And so if we think about the totality of things, we can only become despondent. The American Empire will collapse.
So basically that was the video. The American Empire will collapse. He's giving a thumbs up. And that's exactly what's happening. American Empire will collapse, but that the professor in the video, yeah, he was saying a whole lot there, because he got some knowledge, worldly knowledge, and all these different philosophies, more or less, they originated from the Bible. Then these heathens just you know, twist the truth, and they add and took away from the truth and made these different philosophies and sayings and things like that. That's how they came up with whatever theology that they know more or less it originated from the Bible. They just twisted it, you know, twisted the knowledge and wisdom of the Bible and the story of the Bible, and they made their own way about it. So basically, yeah, America, Babylon is great. It's fallen. It's past appointed, the time appointed, because it says traditionally, by historical empires, roughly 250 years is the expiration date, and there's no other. According to the Bible, there's no other nation that is promised an everlasting kingdom but the kingdom of Israel. So, like he said, all empires is basically has an expiration date, and that's according to the Bible. Because there's no other like the statue of Nebuchadnezzar or whatever that statue in Daniel's, the book of Daniel's, that that depicts the Babylonian Empire, the Medo-Persian, the Greco-Roman, and we at the 10 toes of the Greco-Roman Empire, which is America, Babylon the Great, NATO, and the EU, which will be destroyed, broken, and collapsed, and everlasting empire or everlasting kingdom will reign on earth forever and ever, which is the kingdom of Israel. Yasharala, right? So I'm gonna end it off there. I hope it's edifying to the elect. I want to say, call her Layim La, Yahawah, bahasham, Rawchaa Qadash, Shalom to the next time. Yahawah Ratazah, which means Lord willing. Why, bye, bye.